The next function on our list is the function called trim. So if we try and type trim in a search, there we go, the first one. And what it does is strips white space or other characters from the beginning and end of a string. And then we've got the description. It returns a string. We pass in the string as the first argument, and then we have a second optional, as you can see, argument because of these square brackets, which is basically the character mask. And it says this function returns a string with white space stripped from the beginning and end of a string. Without the second parameter, trim will strip these characters. And we have an ordinary white space, as you can see, just a space here. Then we have a tab, new line, carriage return, the null byte, and vertical tab. And if we scroll down, we have parameters, obviously, as we've just discussed, the string that will be trimmed, and optionally, the stripped characters can also be specified using the character mask parameter. Simply list all characters that you want to be stripped. With two full stops, you can specify a range of characters, and we're going to have a look at this again as well. And then we have return values, the trimmed string, and then we have a few examples. Let's go back to the editor and quickly have a look at one of the examples. We're going to start with the first name equals, and then in between the double quotes or single, basically, it's entirely up to you. I'm just going to put my name, so Sebastian, and then space at the end. It's just the first name, obviously. And now what I'm going to do is just to show you that there is a space, actually, we are going to use the var dump. And first of all, we are going to pass the first name as an argument to this var dump function. If we now preview everything in a browser, we go to our php course.dev, refresh the page. As you can see, there's clearly a space at the beginning and at the end of the string. Now if we go back and we use this trim function, trim without any arguments, and without any arguments, we should have this string with these spaces on both sides removed. And fair enough, this is what we're getting. Before we had 11 characters because space is counted as a character as well. Now we have only 9, which is just these letters. If we go back, just to remind ourselves again, if I remove this trim and go back to the browser, refresh the page, we have 11 characters. As you can see, these spaces have been added to the count. Okay, next example. Let's quickly have another variable, actually, last name here. And let's create a space again. And I'm just going to put my surname here as well. And what I'm going to do now is use the string variable equals, and now I'm going to concatenate both of these with the hyphen. So at the beginning, the hyphen, then we have trim first name, then I'm going to concatenate it with another trim, and I'm going to concatenate the trim the last name, and then concatenate it with another hyphen at the end. And obviously I've forgotten to concatenate this string here with this trim function. So now we have a string. If we now simply echo the string and preview everything in the browser, refresh the page, and there we go. We have a hyphen. White spaces have been trimmed already because we used a trim function without any second argument. So we have just these hyphens and my full name without any spaces. So if we go back to the editor, what I'm going to do now is after this, I'm going to simply echo br, basically a new line, HTML tag, and then we are going to echo trim. Only this time we are going to pass this string as the first argument, and the character that we want to strip from the beginning and the end, which will be the hyphen. So if we now save it, preview everything in the browser, and as you can see, second example now is without these hyphens. They both have been removed from the beginning and the end. Now we can provide more than one character. So if I now, let's say, use capital S, and if we save it and preview it in the browser, there we go. The first letter S in capital has now been removed. So we removed the hyphen on both sides, and then capital S on the left-hand side, because obviously on the right-hand side we don't have capital S, and otherwise it would also be removed. So if we go back to the editor, let's try and add another character, I. So now we should have also removed this I at the end. So if I refresh the page, there we go. Fair enough. I is gone, capital S is gone, and both hyphens are gone. If we go further, and let's try and remove K letter as well. If we save it, preview it in the browser, this K should now be gone if we refresh the page, and it is. Okay, so you can obviously play as long as you want with this, But I wanted to show you another thing. So now I'm going to remove all of this and I'm going to create a new string variable and associate the word alphabet with it. But I'm also going to add a LA at the end. So obviously the word which does not exist, it's just the alphabet, but we then reverse the first two letters. So we follow this with L and A at the end. So what I want to do now is if I just echo this, trim, and I'm going to use this string, and I want to remove the range of characters this time. So it's going to be A, and these two full stops as we've read in the documentation, and then letter P. And if we save it all and preview it in a browser, we get just letter T. And why, now question? Well, this range tells us start from capital A and all the letters between this capital A and letter P. Remove them all. And obviously L is before P. P is obviously included because it's the last letter here. Then we have H, which is also before P, so it's within this range. Then we have A, lowercase, which is also within this range. Then we have B, E, which is also in this range. Obviously T is after P, so it would not be within this range from A to P. That's why the T is the only one that has been kept. And obviously A and L on the right hand side, exactly same thing. So obviously these have been removed. That's why we only got T, because it's outside of this range specified here. Now let's have a look at a few other examples. Let's say I'm going to change these letters here to the lowercase a, or at the beginning and at the end of the string. If we now preview it in a browser, refresh the page, still works as you can see. But is it going to work if I just reverse back both of these to capital letter, if I change it actually within the range? If we save it and preview it in the browser, refresh the page, as you can see, nothing has been trimmed because we didn't match lowercase a. So for the range, we have to make sure that the letter we are trying to remove is in the right case. Say if I change this P to the capital letter here within the string, if we save it and preview it in the browser, it still doesn't work because obviously I haven't changed this A to capital. So if I just save it now, refresh the page, and as you can see, it does work. So we can change this P letter here to the capital and it will work. But if I reverse it back to lowercase and change it to the capital letter within the range, what is going to happen? Refresh the page. As you can see, it's been ignored because it couldn't match the uppercase. So that's basically how it works. So it's going to stop basically at the first occurrence of the character that I cannot match basically. So we obviously couldn't match this capital letter because it's just the capital letters. Now the range is only including capital letters. So we've got a capital A, and then we have going basically capital P and all the capital letters in between. If I change it to say capital L letter, refresh the page. If we go back to the browser, refresh the page, still doesn't match. But if I change this L letter here to the capital one, save it and preview it in the browser, there we go. This one has been removed. This one hasn't because it's a lowercase. So obviously that's another thing to remember when you are going to be using the ranges for the together with the trim function. There are two other functions which do similar job, and they are called ltrim and rtrim. Let's first check ltrim, and if we check this one, what it does is strips white space or other characters from the beginning of a string. So basically it does the same job as string, the only difference is it only trims from the left hand side, and respectively rtrim will do it from the right hand side. So let's quickly check it in the editor. If we remove the example we had before, I'm just going to create say URL, and I'm going to put say /page /name /index and /. And if I now echo the string basically parsed with this ltrim function, we are passing this URL string, and then I want to trim the / from the left hand side. So if we save it and preview everything in a browser, and there we go. As you can see, the / on the left hand side has been removed. On the right hand side, nothing's changed because this ltrim only trims the string basically on the left hand side. If I change it to rtrim, and if you want to, obviously, if we go back to the browser, we refresh the page, now the left hand side / is there, but the one on the right hand side has been removed. If we go back to the php.net, we can simply check our trim, and you'll see the specification is pretty much the same, but from the end of the string, obviously it trims, and everything else stays the same as the trim function.